You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanout, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio every Thursday and Sunday at Good Times Jazz Bar downtown.
Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey and I'm with local artist Kurtis Schumm. Welcome, Kurtis. So glad to have you.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for thinking of me.
Of course. I'll start out by reading just a little bit from your website. So you had a career in the music industry, and then you transitioned into being a successful restaurateur with 4 restaurants over the course of 10 years. And then about your art, I'm going to read a little bit of your bio. It says, with his wife as his muse, he's managed to morph artwork now into a career, creating artwork for Seamus wine labels, etc. His female portraiture is his ethos, his modus operandi, and it's evident in the way his art has evolved into new groundbreaking methods. Cool.
Thanks.
So I love, it's almost like you have 3 separate tiers of creativity, right?
Yeah. They kind of work together for me for some reason. It might seem confusing, but in the chef world, when we had sommeliers come by to explain wine to us and things like that, it's really hard and it can be intimidating to learn different styles of wine and what you like, which is what it all boils down to. But if they said when you taste a wine, think of a color, and it'll help you memorize that style. So a lot of times Sauvignon Blanc is described as grassy, and so a tone of green. And then when you taste that again, it's this is probably from France, and it's probably a Sauvignon Blanc or whatever. But and so in the food world, because of plating and things like that, I kind of lived in color, and I see a lot of music like notes and tablature and things like that in color.
That is so
and
funny.
so when art came to, it's different, using different muscles and memory and brain power.
The color is the thing.
But the color was the thing that kind of tied it all together for me.
That's so cool about the wine. So it's almost like mnemonic devices to help you remember certain keywords with it.
Yeah.
Is there that term? Is it synesthesia? Is that the thing where?
Is that where you forget everything?
Well, there's a thing where it's
I'm just joking. Anesthesia.
Yeah, ironically, there's something that describes where smells have a certain color or sounds have a certain color. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that. So you started out in the music industry. Were you playing guitar? Is that it? And you were playing in Nashville at clubs and things?
Yeah. I grew up in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is just a 45-minute drive from Nashville, to be right downtown. So it's drive from Tybee to Savannah almost. And it's not bad at all. So
you were just young and you were here's all these Nashville clubs, and that's where you started going?
Yeah, there were, my parents had a bunch of friends that were musicians, and my parents were not musicians, but they took me to some adult party type things where I could hear these guys, and I was enamored with it, and I was avidly trying to learn, and then ended up playing with a bunch of those guys, and they kind of took me under their wing. And so through a guy, Kurtis Birch, I played at the Bluebird Cafe the first time when I was 14, and then it just kind of took off from there. Got involved with Gibson guitar, and then worked with a couple different managers, Tom Zutot, who discovered Guns N' Roses, and Stephanie Scamardo, who's married to Warren Haynes from the Allman Brothers. They both managed me for a stint of time, and that opened because of their possibilities at everything.
Yeah.
So I was able to do some stuff, and I was running in high school. I had a running scholarship and turned that down to play music. So I did not go to college, but music was kind of my college.
So did you play with your peers in high school at all? Were you in bands and things, or was it just you were learning from these adults?
It was mostly, with older folks, and then my brother joined in playing with me somewhere along the way.
How would that go to be in a club and you're not even 21, and so you can't even drink, and yet you're in here playing?
It happened.
It's funny dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were some bartenders that would give me a beer or something here and there, and there's this guy Denny Hayes who owns some clubs in Louisville, Kentucky, and he said he was going to, I guess Deer Creek is kind of a long drive from there. He was going to an Allman Brothers concert, and he was like, "Do you think your parents would let you go with me?" And they said yeah, but I forget. I think I was a freshman in high school.
Wow. So that's 14.
Yeah, young. And he had a flask, and he said that it'd be smartest for me to sneak it in to the Allman Brothers because they weren't going to check me because I was so young. It wouldn't be obvious. So I was with this bartender driving. It was fun.
It's funny,
all kinds
yeah.
of weird stories.
Just shenanigans.
Yeah.
It's also to be like, you're this musician and you're going to this cool concert, but you're young enough that you have to ask your parents if you can go or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I was like, I remember talking to him because I was an Allman Brothers fan, and I was like, Dwayne's not around anymore. One of the founding members. And I was like, who plays slide guitar for them? And it had been several different people over the time frame. He said, I don't know. He said, there's this new guy. His name's Warren Haynes, and he wrote country songs, and he played at the Bluebird Cafe a bunch. And he wrote Two of a Kind, working on a Full House for Garth Brooks, and which not many people know that about him, but he was the one that was playing there, and that his wife was who ended up managing my career later in life. So it was like, that was the first big concert I went to, like that, you know, without a chaperone, without my parents.
I like also that you mentioned that you were a really big runner, which is like, maybe most people who are musicians aren't into this really healthy kind of lifestyle, so you're really different.
Gosh, our team, we won state 3 years in a row, and I mean, we were doing like 80 miles a week.
Wow.
So it was a lot.
So you were wholesome. You were running during the week, and then on the weekends you were like sneaking flasks into shows.
Concerts. Yep. And then my homework suffered a little bit.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it did. I'm used to not being great at school. I did second grade twice with Miss Bailey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was the part that tripped you up in second grade?
She'd hand out classwork and we were supposed to do it, and I would just like draw a snake on the paper and turn it in. Like that was complete, you know, like I did what I was supposed to. And then it grew from there into where there was like name in the line. I actually would write snake and turn it in, so that was like an early nickname.
Was that like malicious compliance or something?
No idea. They were like,
I refuse.
They were like, you're doing this great again. So that started a long time ago.
That's so funny. How old? So, for how much of your life did you continue doing this, being a musician and traveling around? I guess, like playing with different bands. Or
I did it till I moved here about 20 years ago.
Okay.
I played with bands when I moved here initially. That was kind of a side gig.
Yeah. Were you living in Nashville at that point? Like,
no, I was here. I'd moved here full time.
Oh, I mean before here. Is that?
Oh, I lived in Nashville for a short time frame.
Yeah. What brought you here originally?
My mother and father separated, and she was an artist also. She was a Pisces, and she had never lived by the water.
Oh.
And so she found Tybee, and I wasn't tied down to anything, and so I helped her move, and then just kind of stayed. And then the rest is kind of history.
That was a cool time to get in it, to have a Tybee house also.
Yeah, it's changed a lot.
Yeah, was it very just like a small town feeling? And not as many hotels?
No, it was tiny, but it was at the beach, so it was fun.
Yeah.
It was different than Bowling Green, Kentucky, by far.
Yeah, you were finally at the water as well, right? You
Yeah.
weren't landlocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you transitioned. How did you get into doing the restaurants?
Well, I studied under a lady from Verona, Italy, and so I'd always had a culinary background, but I'd never worked in the kitchen in a restaurant. I just was a really, I guess, proficient home cook. And when I met my now wife, Sarah, I would cook for her a lot. And there was this place that here on Tybee that was vacant. She had moved back from Atlanta. And it went on and on and on. And it was just sitting there. And we called and looked at it, and it's like, we could do this.
Really?
Yeah. And it was a lot of restaurant at that time frame. It seemed small the longer we did it.
Yeah.
But originally it was like 120 seats.
Okay.
So, with minimal actual restaurant experience, it was like a lot to bite off.
What would that be? So 120 seats, can you give like an equivalent of some restaurant downtown that we might know? What would that be like?
It's probably almost as many seats as the Forsyth at the park.
Okay.
Which is a lot of seats.
Yeah.
The restaurant there.
So it's
that's
funny.
Probably a few more than that.
Okay.
Yep.
So you guys just looked at it and you were like, yeah, we're just gonna start this restaurant, and that's sort of like the classic thing that people do where they think, oh, I'm able to cook, I'm gonna start a restaurant, and then most of them don't work out. So, what was it that you think worked for you?
It was a really different flavor profile. It was some very unexpected stuff. We had like a duck taco, and we had a pear and chorizo fish taco.
Oh yeah.
And some stuff that was just kind of left field. And,
yeah, it was really
some
avant-garde
flavor profiles that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so I think there was some success in that. And then we had a lot of great people that worked with us that were awesome, and there was a learning curve as there was with everything, but we just worked it really hard, and that was like right at the right after the '08 crash, I guess,
Okay.
or like 2-3 years after that. So opening a restaurant was probably not the best idea, and we weren't married at the time, and it's like, you guys really think this is gonna work?
Yeah.
I mean, like all odds were kind of against us, but we were both had some fight in us, and we were able to
That's
make
so
it work,
funny.
and then it grew from there.
When was it? I guess Tybee was kind of a vacation destination then, but it would mostly be locals going, I
It was
guess.
mostly locals.
Yeah, so you just had
Yeah.
staple people.
Yeah, it was probably, there were a bunch of younger people that lived out here at
Really?
that time frame, and that changed almost all the way.
Yeah. So you kind of, it's interesting with both the music and your cooking that you just like had a good connection who kind of took you under their wing and taught you things
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and the lady Juliola that I trained under, she was funny, and she was very fundamental about, if you bought a chicken, you boil it and you have a stock, and you can make a butter from the fat, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
can pick the chicken to make, like a taco night or anything, and you get lots of meals out of like the $5 chicken.
Yeah.
And then you can roast the carcass again and make a secondary stock that's like a darker stock, and so it kind of goes on and on and on. And you get like 5
Different-
meals out
yeah,
of like
levels.
a $5 chicken. And I really wanted to like teach classes in underprivileged areas where people are spending way too much money on food.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy, and there's easier ways to do that for a lot less money.
I love the idea of just, I mean, like a whole art form just based around how much you can get out of one chicken is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's
you know?
fun.
I mean,
Yeah, she was good. She had this guilty pleasure though that she was like a very wealthy Italian lady, and she had these mink coats that were temperature controlled in storage.
Oh.
And she and my mom would stay up and drink wine, and I guess, I don't know this, but I think she slept nude. And she would put on these mink coats, and she and my mom would go to McDonald's to get a cheeseburger. They were just like totally naked under these
Under
mink
coat.
coats. So funny.
was that here? Was this in Tybee or
That
was
was in
it before?
Kentucky.
Okay. That sounds like that would create quite a stir.
Yeah, it was funny.
Let's see. So what was that first one? What was that called? That restaurant?
The Tybee Island Social Club.
Okay. All right. So I didn't know that had been around that long.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you have 4 now, or is it like at your peak you had 4?
No, at the peak there were 3 different buildings, but 4 different concepts.
Okay.
The second one was Fish Camp. It's over by the post
Yeah.
office, and we built that out, and that was just dinner 5 nights a week, and I changed the entire menu every day based on what we could get. So it was really ambitious to have a
Yes.
restaurant grade 5 new meals every day.
Everybody loves that place.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So what does that mean if you're for getting local seafood? Is there a local seafood market you go to get things? How does that?
There is.
Are you out there
were,
fishing in the ocean? Or?
No, we wouldn't have time for that. There's a company based out of Atlanta that you can order up until they get lots and lots of really, really quality stuff. We buy local from local markets, like Russo's and some of those things.
Yeah.
But we had to supplement with some stuff that was exotic, and most of that would come from Atlanta. And it's a company called Inland, and you can order up until 10 p.m. that night, and it'll be there by 9 a.m. the next morning. So they're like an overnight, and then drive and deliver the stuff. So it was like, there was some stuff we were able to get that was in the water in Hawaii, a day and a half before, 2 days before.
That's incredible. It's a whole art form too.
Yeah, their logistics are incredible.
Yeah, especially that you would wake up and like come up with a whole new menu, and then I guess have to like train or impart the chefs to be doing a different thing every day.
Mhm.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
We would do some pretty basic sauces, and then based on herbs we could get or anything like that, we would infuse to change those things a little bit. So
Yeah.
it was always fresh, but we were getting whole fish and breaking them down, which is fun.
It's like the chicken thing, right?
Yeah.
Breaking down the chicken. Would you have live music at your restaurants?
We did it at Tybee Island Social Club.
Okay.
We had music Thursday through Sunday.
So would you ever play?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time. Are you still doing that?
But yeah.
Can we still see you play around?
I haven't booked any shows, but
Okay.
yeah, I play for friends.
Who do you play with? If you're
There's
like jamming.
there's a local guy that toured and played with us a little bit. His name's Eric Dunn. He played with the band Velvet Caravan, and he and my
Oh, yeah.
brother are big friends, and so he was one that I would play with a lot. And then a guy named Zach Smith that used to live here. He's in Colorado now. We played together a bunch.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
love that. So you kind of there was a little bit of overlap with the music and the restauranting, but I'm sure that was a huge amount of your time. So you kind of transitioned into that, and then at some point you just decided to move on into the visual art as well, right?
Because of the restaurant, I would do artwork for the walls. There were other artists that we carried also, but I kind of got a following here through that, and people would buy stuff off the walls, which was great. And when I had time to paint, it was therapeutic for me because it wasn't a job. It was like after the chaos of the restaurant world, it was like I'd stay up and put in headphones and paint like all hours of the night. And so when we sold those concepts, it was just a natural transition for me because it was something that I built a following doing. Didn't have the storefront for it anymore, but there were a lot of other people that were willing to carry my stuff. Yeah. And so I transitioned into that full time.
So it started as just like a necessity. You just wanted some things to go up on the wall. You were like, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much.
So where did you go to get the materials? Like what did you start off doing? What was your early stuff?
I was painting a bunch on board, and I would build my own frames for those, which was a learning curve in itself.
Yeah.
But, it was a lot on board. I was doing some canvas work, but I would stretch my own canvases. I used to help out with at Paula Dean's house a long time ago, and she had these beautiful linen panels on the front that had gotten sun bleached a little bit. She was going to throw them away, and I asked if I could have them. So a lot of the early paintings that I did are on panels from her. It was beautiful linen, so it worked great.
Linen is really nice. Do you just sort of taught yourself how to stretch canvas and build these stretcher bars and things, or was it like you would look at her work and then be like,
I just did it. It was just self-taught.
Okay, cool. Were you painting? So your style now it's very in your bio it says your wife is your muse, and it's like women reclining, right? It's sort of like women at leisure. It looks like. Is that what you were always doing from the beginning?
No, it's not. I always pretty much did figure form type stuff, but no, it just kind of living at the beach, and I wanted to create stuff that seemed relaxing, like it seemed like vacation, and that just kind of was a niche that worked for me.
Yeah, that's cool. So you were just throwing your art up on the walls, and then people were buying it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one of the first big ones that I did was a girl in a red bathing suit, and there was a young couple that lived out here at that time. It was Pete and Logan Pollock, and they were getting married, and they were like, we don't know if we can afford this or not, but it would be our wedding gift to each other. And they were big supporters and such sweet people that I worked with them, and what they could afford.
Yeah.
And they both ended up, her father was a very famous tennis player, Stan Smith. There's the greenback Adidas, or the shoes that he designed. He was a multi-time Grand Slam tennis winner. And so she was a big athlete, and Pete was a big athlete. A lot of his family served in the American military, and they're just a really neat couple. He got into the pharmaceutical world, and she called me sometime later, and somebody was moving a mirror in their house or something, and it fell and it slashed the canvas. She was in tears. Oh. She was like, is there anything you can do to fix it? And I was like, there kind of is, but it's not going to be the same. And she goes, could you redo it for us? And so I did, just to help them out. But
was this years later you were repainting it?
Yeah.
So did you feel like you were it's going to be even better this time?
Yeah, you never know. Anytime you are asked to recreate something, I always tell people, it's not going to be the same. If you fell in love with those colors in that moment, that's why they say if you see something, buy it. If you're in the art collecting world, because there's a chance you probably never get that again.
Right. If you contacted that artist and you said, I liked this one, can you basically just recreate this? And it's not, I don't know, it's going to feel maybe stiff looking or something if the artist really tries to recreate it.
It's tricky. People ask all the time though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always tell them that it's just not going to be the same. I can get pretty close, but it's not going to be a copy.
Yeah, it's almost better if it'll probably still feel more loose and interesting if you were understanding what aspects of it they liked, and then you just did a whole new painting kind of incorporating that, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like that before too. The few times I've tried to copy something I'd done before, that it just comes out stiff and it's just not as good, and it's kind of a disappointment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tricky.
So it's interesting from the beginning that you were doing figures and people, because that seems so difficult to me. That just seems like a pretty advanced place to start off, especially if you're self-taught. And were you working from photos, or what would you do?
Yeah, mostly from photos.
Yeah.
I have friends that were photographers and stuff that I would take, things like that. Yeah, I like the kind of unposed, like weird movement type figurative stuff that's also relaxing.
So would you do, from the photo, you do a drawing first and then paint it? Did you feel like it was taking you forever to like get it to look good and get the proportions right? The drawings?
It took a little while to get this. I mean, skin blending is tricky. My mom being an artist, she never like gave me lessons or anything, but there were like corrective measures for shading and stuff like that, like when I was younger and doing it, like how to make a nose not look flat, which is not easy to do.
Yeah.
And then like if you're doing somebody's eyes, where to put a fleck of light so that they don't look cross-eyed, because then it just looks like a black circle.
So
brown circle.
What's your rule of thumb about where the fleck of light goes?
Oh man, that's tricky. Sometimes I'll just play around with it, like put it like in a certain spot, and then the other one's got to match that, or it's cross-eyed. But
is it in about the same place in both eyes, or is that not how?
Usually.
Okay.
Yeah, but sometimes they're slightly different sizes.
Yeah.
And so with the newer technique that I'm doing, so like on canvas when I would do that, I had to basically forget everything that I'd learned. Because you'd start with darker tones usually and then build your way off the canvas. So like you'd finish with like cheek flesh colors and things like that.
The highlights.
And so with what I'm doing now, it's the exact opposite of that. I have to do those things first, which is totally backwards.
Okay.
So it's tricky.
Yeah. You're always setting up a new challenge for yourself.
Yeah.
What was your trick you said to make a nose look not flat? Can you describe what that is?
Well, there's a
people will be curious. People will want to do this at home.
Well, there's sometimes like a wider flat line and then a slightly different color that's a smaller square and then a smaller square, and it's just kind of an overlapping of shapes in differences of tone to build it off. And I just know how to do it. I can't really explain it. I guess if somebody watched, they'd maybe make more sense.
It's funny, it's been so long since I tried to do really a portrait, or like in SCAD where there's a bunch of classes where you have to do master copies or doing self-portraits and things, and it's been a long time since I tried doing really realistic portraits like that. But yeah, it's funny how when you're just staring at the features, you really quickly just sort of like disassociate, and you're not like painting an eye. It's broken down into tiny shapes and colors and things, and you just are like, I remember them always teaching us kind of, maybe you see a color or like a shape and you put it down and you think it's going to be wrong, like you don't think that's how it occurs in nature, but you just have to do it the way you see it, and then when the painting is done, it's going to look correct.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And it's weird how many different colors there are in somebody's face. Everybody, I mean, it's like they're just like peachy colors, and it's like, no, there's like purple and green and blue and like everything under the sun.
And when you're doing like the shadows, like in the areas under people's eyes or in the nose, that there's going to be like tinges of green in there. And
there was a lady that commissioned me to on St. Simon's to paint her, and she is a beautiful woman of color, and she was like, can you do that? And I was like, I think so. I was like, it's tricky because I'm used to looking at me in the mirror, and I'm a white dude. And so it's a whole different palette of color to paint somebody. But it came out really well. And so I just put on some Beyonce and rocked it out.
Yeah, it was a good challenge.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
What were some of the colors that you felt like you were seeing that you were mixing up for her?
There was more aubergine than I thought, like an eggplant. That I ended up using. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I guess it's the same principle. It's like darker tones, but still has color in it. It's not just like shades of gray or something.
Yeah, I got it now.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So your paintings are, they just have a very like sophisticated, relaxed vibe to them, and they do look like just little snapshots, little moments that are posed. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering, so at some point you transitioned from you said you were working on just like panels and canvas and whatever materials you could find,
Mm-hmm.
and then you started working on, is it glass and plexi? Or just, is it just
It's mostly
acrylic?
just lucite or
Okay,
plexiglass.
lucite.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you get that?
There's a couple companies that you can order it from. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And when I started playing around with it, I realized how expensive it was because I started using some epoxy paint on it because I tried oil and some things like that, and it would kind of scratch off, and I felt like it wasn't going to bond correctly, like a permanent bond. And then when I started using epoxy paints, it dries real quick or it gets goopy real quick. So it doesn't give you that work time like oil. It's more like the quickness of watercolor. And if you make a watercolor mark, it's on the paper. There's no, like with oil, you can kind of disguise and color and scrape
like
off.
the edges of the mark is just
there.
there.
It's there. And so with the plexiglass, it was a little nerve-wracking at first because those paints, when they bond, it's like fingernail polish and it doesn't come off. Okay. So if you buy a full sheet that's like $300, you're doing a large painting on and screw it up, it's you're out.
Yeah, it's painful.
A lot of money.
Can you scrape it off with one of those like utility knife things? It's really not.
Because it's scratch.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. All right, this is so interesting. I really want to talk more about the materials and everything. We're getting to a good stopping point, so we are going to take a little station break. And everyone, this is Tamara Garvey, and I'm with Kurtis Schumm.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.
Trees are one of Chatham County's most treasured natural resources. Beyond their beauty and cultural significance, the impact of trees are far-reaching and compounding, spanning from economic benefits to health improvements to climate change resilience. Trees are woven into every aspect of our lives. Savannah Tree Foundation protects and grows Chatham County's urban forest through tree planting, community engagement, and advocacy. More information is available at savannahtree.org. This portion of WRUU's programming is brought to you by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have online ordering and curbside delivery available, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming. And it doesn't just mean that we're a voice for the community. It also means that we're counting on the community to keep us going. And you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
From flappers to feathers, sequins to leathers, shabby to chic, and everything unique, WRUU has the look in its Southern Speakeasy Fashion Show Saturday, September 30th from 7 to 10 p.m. Discover the Low Country's most creative designers and boutiques and help support the most unique radio station. The WRUU Southern Speakeasy Fashion Show at King Oliver's Creole Jazz Bar, 514 MLK Boulevard in Savannah. Saturday, September 30th from 7 to 10 p.m. Tickets available at eventbrite.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I'm with artist and musician and restaurateur Kurtis Schumm. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
Of course. Good to have you back for the second half.
I know, we needed that break.
Thanks for continuing on.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so when we went to the break, we were just talking about your how you had transitioned into the way that your paintings currently are, which is on, tell me again, is it lucite? Is that what it is? Okay.
Plexiglass.
Plexiglass.
It's a petroleum-based glass that was really hard to find during COVID because it was required that some places put up those shields. And so there's like a shortage of plexiglass during COVID, and I was affected by that for sure. It's lightweight and
Yeah.
it doesn't shatter, so it's not dangerous like glass. Glass would do the same thing, but it's got a fracture point. The plexiglass doesn't have that, so it was safe for restaurants,
Yeah.
and things like that.
So, and it scratches, it just doesn't break.
Yeah.
All right. I guess there's always
It
a
can
downside.
fracture. It doesn't fracture like glass though.
Yeah.
And that's why in banks they have thick bulletproof. That's not glass. It's plexiglass.
Yeah.
It's really thick, and even a bullet won't penetrate that, which is cool.
Good to know for your paintings.
Yeah.
So when you order it, is it like coming in a box of a bunch of large sheets, or what is it like?
Yeah.
Getting?
Yeah. Usually like that. And there's safety in numbers when you get more than one together.
Yeah.
It's even stronger. But it's heavy. And it comes with a plastic coating on it. It keeps it from scratching.
Do you cut it down into pieces? How do you cut
Yeah.
it?
There's a learning curve there.
Yeah.
Also, depending on the thickness, sometimes you have to use a power tool of some sort. But for the thinner ones, you can cut it pretty easily with a razor blade.
Oh, yeah.
Where you can score it and fracture that,
Okay.
and it'll break along the score.
Do you have to score it on both sides like a bunch of times and then bend it, or
No,
Okay.
just one side.
maybe I'm just very weak?
No. Well, I mean, anything that's like, it's sold in millimeters, and after a certain millimeter,
Oh, yeah?
you have to use a power tool. And because of the density of it, it can gum up and it'll heat up, and the plastic will fracture from the heat. So you have to do it patiently.
Okay, I didn't realize it was that thin.
Some of it is, some of it's thick.
Do you ever just like cut yourself on the edges?
No, I have cut my foot in the middle of the night on it when
yeah.
it's leaning up and you don't see it
You
because it's
just kicked
transparent.
it. Oh gosh.
My wife has too. Lots of open toe foot injuries from bumping into plexiglass.
You can't wear open-toed shoes in your home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you? So this is so interesting to me that you started out just kind of like using, wood panels or like whatever random old canvases you could get your hands on from people, and then at some point you just decided you're going to start in this whole new substance that people aren't usually working on. How did that even occur to you?
Well, just like in the creativity of songwriting or in the restaurant world, if you want to stand out, you got to try to maybe do something that nobody else is really doing. And there's always a level of emulating, somebody. And when we went to Paris, I was really inspired at Musée d'Orsay, the portrait, the Impressionist gallery, and the colors that I saw there were really, really inspiring. There was nobody in that museum that was doing what I'm doing on plexiglass, but I got really got really happy about artwork, and I got back and I was like supercharged, and I just wanted to play around with different stuff. There's a quote that I just heard not too long ago that's I thought it was pretty good. It's on a documentary on Netflix about John Mayer, and it says that when you fail trying to emulate someone, you find your own style. Like when you try to do something that somebody else is doing and you fail, you kind of find your own style, because everybody starts with something that influenced them. And a lot of times you can see it in somebody's work, but I think you really find your own vibe when you screw it up.
That's so cool. Did John Mayer mention who specifically he had been? Was he trying to emulate anyone?
Probably Steve Ray Vaughan.
Okay.
So with the plexiglass, the tricky thing about it is because of the weight of it, it's difficult to frame.
Okay.
And because there is movement in it, there's almost got to be things that help stabilize it. So the framing was almost as much of an obstacle as it was the creation or the inception.
Yeah, I would think
process.
If it's smallish, then it doesn't wiggle so much, but the larger ones, it's almost like it would bow at different areas and
it
wiggle.
Can very easily.
So when you frame it, would you have like a white backing board behind it or something, or do you do just a frame and so you're still like seeing through the whole piece?
I've done it several different ways. I've done floating images.
Yeah.
And I've done some that have like a foam core behind them.
Yeah. To stabilize it.
Yeah.
And
well, kind of to stabilize, I guess.
Yeah.
But also to give it that depth.
Just have a background.
Yeah, which is nice. The depth on that is what really got me excited about it. And I think it's where there's been a lot of success because nobody is really doing it. And there's a guy that I work with. I just did a show at their house in Ponte Vedra, and he owns a plexiglass company, and so we're scheming for some
Oh.
new things that are kind of custom, like 5-side boxes and things like that.
Is that like, so you'd been ordering plexi from his company and then gradually just formed a relationship with him?
Yeah, actually, it worked backwards. His wife found my stuff on social media, and she commissioned me to do a piece. And then I think there were 2 more after that. And then she wanted one done custom, and so they invited us to stay at their pool house, which is like on Billionaires Row. So here comes a little Kentucky boy.
And where was this again?
In Ponte Vedra.
Okay.
It's at a really fancy country club. But I did that there, and then she wanted to do something again, and so I did a bunch of work and traveled down to stay with them, and they did a private party and invited people to come and have a happy hour and look at stuff.
Did you go there and do the paintings while you were there?
That time I didn't.
Okay.
No, before I did. I took all those with me.
How was it transporting your work? Were there
It wasn't
things you had
that
to figure
bad.
out?
No,
Yeah.
I've gotten good at that. I usually ship my own stuff because I don't really trust people because they don't know where the vulnerabilities are. So I usually pack it myself.
That's funny. So I'm intrigued by this. This woman was her husband works in plexi, and she's like searching around on social media just looking for plexi items or something.
No, she just found my art
I like this.
somehow. But her husband's really interesting. So it was like, yeah, I own a company that does that, and I was like, okay, really? And then we're like having coffee, and he was like, yeah, I import that. And then we like went to lunch, and he was like, I was like, this is really good rye bread. And he was like, yeah, my company makes that. It was just like everything that we had. I was like, what do you not do, man?
He's like, the air you're breathing. I made that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a successful business guy in a bunch of different categories. So really interesting. But yeah, we're working together on some customized plexiglass stuff.
The pieces that you made for her, did she want portraits of her, or like were they landscapes? What did you do?
No, for her hosting and footing the bill for all the guests and everything, I did a painting of her daughter for her, and so I took that there.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it was cool.
Was that the first time you'd gotten like a portrait commission for someone else?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, I've done a bunch.
How do you like doing that? How is it like working with people and sort of managing their expectations of what the finished is gonna come out to
It's tricky.
be?
It's really tricky. I just did one. It was 47 feet by 7 feet, so it's 49 square feet of artwork. And it was a realtor in town, Corbett Thomas, and she's over the course of her life, she's had like 10 or 12 dogs. And she had photos of all of them. So I took a photo of her in her courtyard with like a cornucopia of her dogs, all of them from the past around her. So it's kind of like a fun like Wes Anderson type painting because it was like larger than life. Like you wouldn't have all these dogs.
Just these. So you like had to amalgamate different photos of the dogs and like place them in the. Okay, is it?
Yeah, and it was life size. I mean,
wow.
So it was really, really big.
I feel like isn't she famous for like? There's a man that she hires who just walks her dogs, right? Is she the realtor? I think. Like if you're hanging out in Forsyth Park during the day, there's a man who just walks her dogs up and down Bull Street.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Are they Basset hounds? I think I want to say.
She's got a poodle.
Or at least the recent.
She has a
ones.
Basset. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe a couple.
So that was
a bunch of different dogs, but it was a lot of work doing a full size of her, like full on, like lots of colors, and then all the dogs to do like 12 dogs life size was like a really intimidating project.
Yeah, how do you do, so, I mean, your work looks so, like the paint, it seems like you kind of don't have like complete control over like how the colors are going to be and how it lays down and just like the patterns that the paint is going to make when you put it down. So did you like, was it kind of a typical commission where you come up with sketches and she approves it and then you just have to try and like recreate that?
No, I had all the, I'd taken photos of all her originals, and I spent a lot of time with really good scissors, and I cut out all the dogs.
Yeah.
And like sized them all correctly, and I did like a photo.
A collage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it was a ton of work, but it helped with the scale a lot. But I had to size all the photos so that the dogs were all kind of the same size.
That must have been tricky if you accidentally don't do it right and then you do this finished painting and there's like an enormous dachshund or something.
Right, yeah. Or one from a different angle. That was tricky also. Where it's like, why are they all facing different directions?
Did you, did that inspire you to do any kind of like pet portraiture? Because I feel like that is a really big avenue that people love doing.
Yeah, I've done, I've probably done over 200 pet
have you?
portraits. Yeah.
Because it's just not on your website.
No, I haven't put a ton of it up there.
Yeah.
So a lot of them were like real personal. People who have wanted dogs commemorated that are not around anymore.
Yeah.
And it's, it's pretty emotional, and I like hear these stories, and everybody's like so sad, and then you get all these like text photos of people crying with their paintings. And
it's
like,
really special.
'cause pets are emotional, and there is a big niche for painting pets. Of course.
I haven't done that many pet portrait commissions, but probably half of them were a surprise for someone who had lost their dog, and someone else saw that in them and wanted them to get this portrait. And so there was the whole element of like that the entire thing was a surprise that they were going to unwrap this thing. It is really emotional. Yeah,
there's a lady that I'm shipping off a commission for her. She got a gift that was one of her pets, which was the weirdest one I've ever done because it was a bee.
A pet bee?
Yeah, she's a beekeeper, and she has a photo of one that she says is her favorite.
Wow.
And so I painted the bee.
How long had it lived, that bee? How long does it bee live? How long do you have to bond with any one bee?
She was probably, making up that it was the same one.
How big was it, that painting?
Like 11 by 15 inches, something like that.
I'm looking at your work and the size of it. I feel like I want you to do my dog just a really enormous. Just also the idea of having this like hulking portrait of a pet bearing down on you from the wall, I think is really funny.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I totally dig it.
So I guess with your work, you haven't gone into the avenue of like making reproductions or prints or anything of it. Is that a conscious thing? You don't want to have to like get into all that, or what's your feelings about it?
I'm open to it. I guess for mine, somebody would have to scan it. I don't know if you could photograph it and print. It'd have to be like a large scan, so it'd probably be pretty expensive. I don't know. I haven't really gone down that road.
Yeah.
Because then it would have to be printed, for the same effect onto plexiglass with like a laser, or something.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess. Or if you wanted, I'm looking now. You have one piece that's up on the wall that's white.
Yep.
And so like every shadow that comes in from the room kind of projects a shadow on the piece, and then you have another smaller one down here that is framed, and it looks like you do have a white board behind it. So it makes it look like just sort of a traditional painting that could be on paper or something.
Sure.
Yeah. So I guess you could end up doing a print that's just on paper, but it's just going to have that look. Like it won't be.
Right. It wouldn't have that glossy
look. Yeah.
texture. Yeah. And so the fun thing also about the plexiglass versus like just a piece of glass is that it doesn't have that green that glass has. It's like a true clear.
Oh, it's true clear.
Plastic. So that was why I started going that direction.
Yeah.
Also, just because it's so modern and like glossy.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like the technology that makes glass, it just always has some kind of color tinge to it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little more? You mentioned a bit about your evolution of the paints that you ended up using on the plexi. What is it that you've arrived at that works the best for you?
It's mostly three things, but there is a little bit of acrylic, and then there's some ink, and then like I said, the epoxy paint. So a lot of those like thick, goopy colors, in this. The green here is an epoxy paint. It's like a fingernail polish, so it's like really, really shiny.
Okay.
And that's the dangerous one.
So I'll post this image to go on. This is going to be the woman in the green bikini.
Yeah.
So is it epoxy? Is that almost like? Is it like paint that people use for model cars? Is it like that?
Yeah, kind of like that.
Okay. Can you buy big amounts of it? Like how?
They're probably most of the sizes that I buy. They're like 3 ounce.
Okay. Because I'm thinking you mentioned inks, and I work with inks too, and it's just these little dropper bottles, so it's kind of small quantities of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff's expensive too. I mean, to anybody out there listening that's not an artist, the expense of some of the things, when you go to an art store and you have like a small basket of things and go to check out, and it's $160 or something. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, if you had to buy a lot of bottles of ink, that would be a lot. And then if you're buying kind of nice brushes, like really nice watercolor brushes, and I know you mentioned acrylic, that probably, I guess that's the most economical of all the things you're using, right? Where you can get a big tube of it or something.
Right, exactly.
Do you water that down so that it's just behaving like this water-based medium?
Yeah, it works differently though on the plexiglass. It has to be a little bit thick, or it'll separate.
Okay. And just spread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on canvas, it wouldn't do that quite as much. If it was like a heavily like gessoed canvas or something like that, then it can separate a little bit. But I always like mine a little drier.
Okay.
Like just a wash of paint.
So then it'll dry really quickly.
Yeah.
How do you, when you put the ink down, that's just pure liquid. Does that not just spread everywhere?
I have lots of Q-tips and cotton balls and
yeah?
rags and stuff to kind of trap it and move it. And I use my hands a lot to smear, like as it dries. So it's like there's brushes and like mad science lab stuff all over the place.
I'm imagining, so you almost like if you put a little ink down and it just wants to go everywhere, you have to like create a little blockade for it, like a little fortress to keep it in place or something.
Yeah, sometimes I'll let it dry a little bit more before I apply it.
Yeah.
But if you catch it right at that point, right before it dries, then it'll stay.
Do you do a pencil sketch first on the plexi? Does pencil go onto it?
Mm-mm.
Or okay. So there's no sketch, you're just like painting straight on.
I do a layout with some markers sometimes.
Okay. And then when you start putting the paint down, is it like, does that just be all in one go? You just have to do it so that it doesn't dry in weird lines
I usually do
shapes?
I usually do it in 2 big sessions. One that's kind of just an initial layout. Well, maybe more than that.
Yeah.
And then go back and just kind of do a little more definition, and then the finishing touches stuff.
And you said you work light to dark with these?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's backwards.
Yeah.
It's got to be the light colors first.
So at the end, is it a challenge sometimes to not put down too much dark, and then it's like you can't pull it back? Is it hard to know when to stop?
Yeah, because the light tones can be hidden by the dark ones because it's backwards if the dark is too dark.
Yeah.
So then any of the light pinks or anything you would put on flesh tones just look black
Yeah, you
or
just lose
brown. So it's a real delicate process. Kind of like learning to drive a stick shift. I mean, it just kind of, it's real weird at first, and then it kind of just starts to make sense. But if you don't do it right, it'll jerk, and there's a little chaos there.
And you said there's no way to fix it, to pull it back if something.
Not with the epoxy.
Yeah.
Once that's on there, I mean, you can wipe it off real quick if it's bad, but if it sets up at all, then it's there.
Yeah, and you kind of don't, in a lot of your work, there's not always an environment. Sometimes it's just women lounging and they're just like surrounded by clear glossiness.
Yeah.
So there's not even like sort of a washy background that you can wipe things into.
You can.
Yeah.
I've chosen, my wife being an interior designer, just to, kind of the negative space is nice. It just kind of doesn't seem crowded. It's just, that's worked well for me. I have done a bunch more. There's a lady in Beaufort, North Carolina. That's how they pronounce it. It's the same general as our Beaufort, North Carolina. But her design shop focuses a lot on blue and white colors and like chamoiserie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I did a series for her not too long ago. It was a bunch of big like banana plants, like tropical, but they were in like oversized chamoiserie pots.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So it was fun.
So you had to be pretty
colorful.
Precise with like getting this the ceramics, the pattern on the ceramics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way it curves and darkens on the edges, so it doesn't look flat, just like a nose or anything like that.
Super different than, I mean, you're really good at doing these figures, which I feel like is really, really hard. So it's interesting that now if you're transitioning into like doing any kind of just objects and interior design things, that's the new thing for you.
I've done that a little bit. I just recently did a couple of like, they kind of look like a European vacation, like those big like historic spiral staircases with somebody like walking up them.
Yeah.
Some things like that.
Very Riviera.
Yeah. So that's been fun, just to shake it up. And for the Isle of Hope show coming up, I'm gonna do some stuff I haven't done before also.
Okay. And you want to talk about, so how many years have you done the Isle of Hope show?
I think 6.
6. Okay.
I think so.
What do you have any some things that you've learned about how to display your work as far as, so it's a one-day thing and it's outside, so that's always, a challenge with weather and everything. And,
Right.
Yeah, what do you like to do for your display?
Well, I've tried a couple different things. One year I built a bunch of frames out of 2x4s because they were easy to get there, and I just took a screw gun and just built something and then tarped it with canvas and then screwed the artwork up, and that worked okay. At the end of the day, it was kind of a lot to take down.
Okay.
I couldn't find all the screw holes, and it was like, I was just tired. So I think every artist struggles with that a little bit.
Yeah.
So there are tents and things out there you can buy that are pretty easy they're made for that. And
Yeah, if you have a lot of money, you can just buy the whole setup with the 3 walls with the mesh and the
they can
hanging
be
apparatus.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not a lot of people do that.
$2,000.
Yeah, it's one thing if you're like a road warrior and you're doing that all the time.
Right.
But if you just do this one show every so often, then
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't do that, but I like mine to always be creative, and we're going to do some different stuff this year. But last year I took a wire rack, like a rollaway rack, like a very sturdy one, and put a cloth over it, and then zip tied my work onto the wire through the cloth, and that seemed to work really well. It was easy to set up and tear down.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their techniques, but wind and rain are always a factor.
Yeah.
Artwork is it's like having a bunch of sails out there. I mean,
Yes.
it can blow and shake, and I've seen people with jewelry where they have a drop cloth down, and the wind will catch under it and blow jewelry all over the place. And so, I mean, it's
true.
a little tricky. And
Like the surface area of these paintings, it just is
Yeah.
like the wind wants to pick them up and the whole thing sails away.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Now-
But with the plexiglass and the paint that I use, if it rains, that's not really that big of a problem.
Okay, that's good to know.
If it were paper, that
For
would be a
future
little
buyers,
tricky.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody who's bought your work who has it outside on their house somewhere? Is that...
That's the new thing that I'm working on with the people in Florida,
Okay.
where the artwork would totally be encapsulated. So it would be like building an aquarium, where it would be waterproof, entirely waterproof. So it could go in a shower, if you wanted artwork propped up on the floor in your shower, or it could go outside.
Cool.
Things like that. So
Okay.
we're,
A new avenue you're going into.
yeah.
Yeah. Now you mentioned with your display at Isle of Hope that you're zip tying your paintings to something. Does that mean, do you always have holes in your paintings? Is that like
No,
in
it's
the
just
corners?
the fixture on the back that you would normally hang on the wall.
Yeah.
I just put a zip tie on that and then tie it to the wire. It allows you, when something is hanging like that, is not in a frame, and doesn't have a board behind it, whatever your wall color is going to influence the painting. So if you got
Yeah.
bored with this painting, you could take it down and paint the wall a light pink right there and put it back up, and it'd be a totally different painting.
Oh, that's very
Or
beautiful.
like a light gray or anything, or even a
Yeah.
neon of some sort, and it would just
Yeah.
so your artwork, when you are going that route, I mean, some people I think get bored with artwork, and I know people that resell collection that they've had for a long time, but with this you wouldn't really ever have to get bored with it. You can just change it.
That's so cool. It's almost like in theater how there are those colored gels or whatever that you put over the lights to change up
Sure.
the lighting. Yeah. You could do a sunset behind it, make it a whole environment. That's so
You
cool.
could, sure. There's one in North Carolina, that designer that I was talking about, she hung one on grass cloth. So it's got just a real neat beige texture
Wow.
behind it. It's
Yeah.
really pretty.
What is the, I saw on your website that you have some work that you've done for various wine labels. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's a guy, Jim, that makes wine on the West Coast. His last name's Seamus. And he felt like his wine labels weren't selling really well. And I think in wine, you kind of can judge a book by its cover. And you can tell if somebody takes their wine seriously or not by, I mean, usually a fancy bottle is usually a pretty good wine. Not always, but
Yeah.
a lot of times you can tell the thickness of the glass, and if it's a real cork, and if it's embossed, it's this is probably pretty good. And I told him that he needed to just up his game and up his prices, and he asked if I would do 2 wine labels for him. So I did one called Shannon, that is a Sauvignon Blanc, and I did one that's called Debutante, that's a rosé. And he went with a a neat foil, and it is raised inks, and you put
cool.
my name on there and the model's name, and it's done really, really well for him. He sells a lot of it.
Where?
He just does online stuff. He has a shop on the West Coast where he sells, but other than that, it's not in any stores or restaurants here.
Okay, got it. Do you have any images of this I can post with your?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So you can show it. So I guess in this one instance, you did somehow photograph or scan your work and then turn it into a print.
Well, it was a different medium.
Yeah.
This was like watercolor and chalk on paper.
Cool. It was easier to do. Let's see. I like in looking through your work online, you have some fun titles that are very evocative. Like there was one called "It's Here Somewhere," and it's a woman digging in her bag. And then there's one called Gossip Girl, and it's a woman lying down, and you don't see anybody around her, but she's looking in the distance, so you imagine that there is somebody else with her that she's talking to. And if you have fun with the titles.
Yeah, my wife and I have some SCAD interns, and when I don't usually name my stuff in the background, and they had fun, like just letting it rip on that stuff. Sitting around, they've helped a lot with my website and some of those things, so I can focus on painting.
And it looked like on your website, there's a few places around town where people can go and look at it and buy your work. Is the Grand Bohemian Gallery the main one, or?
They have, I think they have several. They have several paintings right now, and then there are several at One Fish, Two Fish store.
Okay. That seems like a great vibe for you. So beachy, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's been awesome. And then at various times, there's been some things in other shops in this area. Then there's some stuff south of here, Cloth on Label. There's some stuff in Mountain Brook, Alabama. There's some stuff, like I said, in Beaufort, North Carolina.
Okay.
All in shops.
And Cloth and Label is at St. Simon's, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that. And then there's that store, Cortland and Company, that I think used to be on Whitaker, and now it's on Bull. Do you sometimes have things there?
I have in the past, yeah.
That's a beautiful store too.
Yeah, very beautiful.
How do you tend to reach out to people to see if they want to carry it, or do people just find you?
Mostly people have just found me. There is a reaching out of sorts to get a little bit farther from just our area, because in the area I'm more known, I guess. So to get some things in some shops on the West Coast and some things like that, it's going to take a little bit of approving.
Yeah.
If they're not as familiar with my work. But whenever I've shipped anybody a sample and they see it in person, they're like, yeah, okay. It just looks really different in person.
Yeah, for sure.
For Miami, I did a series. There were some vintage roller skaters that were kind of fun.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is great. We're getting kind of toward the end. Do you want to leave us talking about anything like new challenges that you're looking to do coming up, or and people finding your work at the Isle of Hope Fair coming up as well?
Yeah, the burning question for everybody is if I would get back into the restaurant industry, and that would be a challenge. So the answer is no.
Okay.
Unless it were the right opportunity. I mean, it's just so much work.
Yeah.
And everybody realized after COVID, I think employees were it became a more and more growing challenge.
Yeah. And
it always has been a big challenge, but just that training and all those things, for me to paint now, it's one employee pretty much. And so if I'm not on the A game, I'm the only one that can be blamed for it. So I think I found something that is less chaotic for me to do. I miss I miss being around people, and it was a really, really fun lifestyle. It's just so much work. So yeah, the art world's been really, really good to me.
That's great.
And it's been very well received. Again, offering something that I don't know of anybody else in the world that's doing.
Yeah.
It's literally painted backwards. So it took a lot to figure it out, but I like good challenges.
Are you gonna have any small pieces at Isle of Hope?
I will. And those are good going into the holiday season.
I will be attending the Isle of Hope as a visitor this year, so I can't wait to come around and see your work. And thank you. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. It's such an interesting format that you're doing, and I loved hearing about your music and your restaurateuring early lives too. Yeah. All right,
thanks so much for the effort you put into this. It's a beautiful thing you're doing, and I hope everybody out there really enjoys these programs.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. All right, everyone. This has been Kurtis Schumm, and thank you for listening. Next up on WRUU, That Old Savannah Magic from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a variety show featuring Savannah history, radio theater, interviews, and music.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.